Well, hey guys, welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa. First time in 2 weeks, we're back on Arrow today. We've been over on solutions for the past 2 weeks because we've been struck. We've been struck, and I could not post for what was supposed to be 7 days, but it ended up being 14. So, for you guys that have missed the shows, yeah, on the past over the past 2 weeks, please go check it out. Check them out on Solutions with Shanti, which is our backup channel, and you'll find everything there as well. And of course, we have back with on Arrow with me this evening the awesome Dr. Dennis Carroll, and we're talking about the Red Hunt, which is obviously some quite gruesome, dark stuff. For those of us who've been watching the channel, these shows for a while, we kind of know that the little people get hunted. So, amongst other things, that's what we're going to be dealing with, speaking about today. Anyway, but before that, I want to just do some, yeah, I am 13, definitely not. Uh, just want to do one or two announcements quickly. Now that we're back on Arrow, we're gonna have Leo Zagami's book club and Samantha Plested, the transsexual woman, will be doing their membership shows. Please just watch the schedule for next week. I will definitely reconfirm or reschedule those shows as well. And then tomorrow at 4 p.m., which is 3 hours earlier than now for you. It's 7 a.m. now, 7 p.m. rather, sorry. I have on Patreon with Jesse, Q&A with Jesse on Patreon. So that's for the Patreons and the members. But the members, if you want to join the Q&A on Patreon tomorrow, please send me an email because then I can send you an email like that. I can't do it any other way. So join the membership, guys, join our Patreon, and we just give you a little bit of added extras there. And then, of course, Leo's Zagami tomorrow night again. And then, yay, Saturday and Sunday, Kathy O'Brien. So we're having a weekend full with Kathy O'Brien. Looking forward to that. And then, of course, if you guys have not seen Beverly Rhodes' show, that was on Monday, the South African psychic who's really blowing the whistle big time now. And of course, we have Juliet Bryant on Tuesday as well, Epstein survivor, ex-South African model, Epstein survivor. She's going to be talking to me on Tuesday next week. Yay! So we've got lots of people spilling some tea, as long as I don't spill mine. So ching ching, everybody. Get your beverage of choice ready. Get your feet up, and taram, we have. Ooh, where is it? Dr. Carroll.
What day is it and where am I at? Okay. Okay. I remember now. I feel sometimes I feel like a prairie dog. I come out of my hole once in a while, look around and see what's going on. But absolutely, I'm afraid we have a very dark subject ahead of us today. And I was just thinking, it's something that's very unpleasant. It's something that we don't like to dwell upon, and we don't really like to talk about it, even think about it. It hurts to do that, but we've got to. We've got to, because we need to peel the layers back on some of this stuff that's going on in the world. We need to pull the covers back and take a look at what's really going on around us in some places. So we're definitely going to. And by the way, I'm going to say this before we start anything. I've been getting the witches mad at me a lot here lately. Okay, the witches are really. I'm really getting on their case, and they're coming to me saying, "Oh, why are you always painting witchcraft so dark and evil and all that?" I said, "Well, here's the problem with that. Okay, witchcraft's kind of like the news. Nobody wants to talk about good news. The only thing they ever talk about is bad news. And that's what happens with witchcraft. You only hear about it most of the time when something bad's going on with it. and that's the way it goes. So don't shoot me, okay? I'm just the messenger. All right. Don't shoot me.
Yeah, don't shoot the messenger. Exactly. We're just messengers, yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Well,
And
definitely,
yeah,
I
absolutely.
just wanted to.
And I can understand why they can get offended about it. But, I've said this before. Let me state this again for everybody. Witchcraft is not a religious belief. Witchcraft is a profession. It is a craft. Okay, and just like any other profession, whether it be roofing or laying floors, just like any other profession, you can have good and bad people in it. Okay, absolutely, and that's what we're talking about today: are the bad people that's in this stuff. And the reason I'm going to say this, and I'll clear this up before we get started. The reason I call them witches a lot because that's what they call themselves. Okay, they call themselves witches and warlocks and sorcerers and magicians. That's what they call themselves. And so that's what I have to label them. If you call yourself that, then that's your label. And that's what we got to go with and understand that. But I want to talk a few minutes about what we've talked a little bit and touched on in the past. And I have talked about the different covens that are out there, Shanty. There are different ones. There are vampire covens, there are werewolf covens, there are satanic covens, there are witchcraft covens. The list goes on and on and on. And sometimes these guys are like social clubs, okay? They always gang up. If just like you and I, Shanty, if we started a knitting club, it would be all about knitting, and all the knitters would get together and we'd knit stuff. Okay, all right, that's the way a social club goes. But these guys are definitely not knitting stuff, folks. Okay, and they are getting together with their own interests. So the werewolves tend to lump themselves together with the werewolves. The vampires tend to do that with the vampires, and so on and so on. And most of the time, and here's the weird thing about this, folks. Most of the time, these guys are getting along pretty good with each other. Okay, they all work for the same boss, actually. Okay, if you want to look at it that way, they're all
Yeah.
working towards the same goal. But now, listen to this. Sometimes they have falling outs and disagreements. We have witchcraft wars that take place sometimes. Covens will fight each other sometimes, and if you remember a werewolf cult, you felt like somebody in a witchcraft cult is disrespected you, that might cause some trouble. And that's the way these guys work. So they're just like any other facet of society that we live in today. There can be cooperation, and then there can be some trouble, and that's the way that goes. And Aleister Crowley, by the way, engaged in a lot of coven battles and witchcraft wars where they would fight each other with spells and all kinds of stuff. This still goes on to this day. So once in a while, they have a falling out with each other. So they're not all on the same page, happy-go-lucky guys, and these are not good people, folks, okay? And they're not going to take life in a good way, no matter which way you look at it, because they are dark, dark, dark. And today, we are going to go down one of the darkest rabbit holes of all. And, but I was going to just say that you would not want to get in the middle of a witchcraft war, okay? You would definitely not want to get in the middle of something like that because it would not be a good place to be. But I just wanted to lay that out for you to begin because they're not all about cooperation all the time, okay? They do have falling out. They do have, some stuff going on that maybe we might think is more competition type stuff in that way, okay, with witchcraft and stuff. But anyway, now you might remember, Shanty, when we talked about the Feast of the Wolves and the Banquet of Blood with the vampires, and supposedly what they do with the little children in these things, okay? And I'll run back over that again for those that may not have seen that show. There is a banquet of blood that the vampires engage in, where they use little children as sort of hors d'oeuvres for the dinner, okay? And they will usually suck them dry and also partake in their flesh. I know this is a horrible thing to think about, folks, but this is real stuff, okay? I'm not making this stuff up. This is real, the real deal. And they do these things for two reasons, two main reasons. They got a lot of other little reasons they engage in this stuff for, but they do a lot of this stuff for two very important reasons. One, it is a form of ritualistic blood sacrifice. Okay, that's a long title, but that's what it's called: ritualistic blood sacrifice. That's part of it, and what that does when they engage in this, it increases their power. Okay. And that's why they're doing this. And, we've talked about that before, Shanty, about some of these entertainers today, the so called entertainment that they're giving us is really rituals. And they're doing that, they're slipping these things in because the more people that engage in these rituals, the more power they can get out of it. Okay. And whether or not just watching it, just watching it makes you a participant of it. And that is what's so very interesting about this. Yeah. And if you participate knowingly or unknowingly in it, you are actually helping them obtain the power they are looking for, whether you know it or not. And that's what a lot of this does. So those are the two main reasons why they unalive little children doing these things. And that also goes with the feast of the feast of the wolves. They turn into werewolves and they massacre these little children and they eat them up. But this is a ritualistic blood sacrificing going on here. And they are sacrificing to their Lord and God Satan when they do these things. And he supposedly will give them power. The more horrific, traumatic, terrible things that they do, the more it supposedly increases their power. Now, we talked about this before, that the number one way you become a dark, evil witch is that you must kill, unalive, a sibling, whether it be a brother or a sister or a child. Child's even better, but they don't usually do that. They don't usually do their own children. But now some children, and you know this without doubt because you've talked to people that have been in this situation, some children are born and bred to be sacrifices for this kind of stuff, okay? And what we're talking about today is one of the most horrendous ways that they do this, and it is called the Red Hunt. Now, what they will do, these covens, whether they be werewolf covens or they be witchcraft covens, satanic covens, or whatever, they all engage in the Red Hunt because it is the supreme ritualistic blood sacrifice ritual, okay, that they can do. And they use little children for this, just like the other things that they were doing with them. And I want to stop right here and say something to everybody listening today. Why do they pick on little children? I'll tell you why. Because they're bullies. They're cowards. They're not going to pick on anybody that's going to fight back most of the time. And little children are innocent. And animals, they do this with animals too. I've seen them sacrifice a goat. Okay? I mean, I know what they do. They drink the blood. They partake of the flesh. This is their way they raise their cone of power over things by spilling blood, ritualistic blood sacrifices. And the most interesting one of all, and the most horrendous one of all, is human sacrifice. And they like young people, children, because of three main things, three reasons why. Okay? One is they are innocent. Children are innocent. They love the innocence. They like to defile that innocence. Okay? Number two, it's young blood. Okay? As opposed to older blood. And it is spiritually new to them. Okay? And three, they infuse this blood with fear and trauma to make it even more addictive to them. Okay? That's what they look for. That's the main three reasons why they do this with children. Okay? And animals as well, because animals can be done the same way as children. But the supreme thing to do it, the complete insult to God, is to take his most innocent creation, a child, and defile them this way and do these things to them. This is the ultimate insult to God. That's why they love it so much. And it raises their dark power for them, this demonic power that they're tapping into. And that is why they do these things. And this is, I know, horrendous to think about, but it is part of what they do. And they gather in the hunting lodges, okay? They have hunting lodges, maybe out of the way places in a forest or national park somewhere. Maybe they got a cabin out there or something, whatever the situation. It can be a place way out of in the middle of nowhere. They're not going to do this around people. They might get discovered. You see what I'm saying? So they go out in places like national parks and deep in woods and forests to do these things. But they have secret hunting lodges out there. And they're not hunting deer, my friends. They're not hunting grouse. They are hunting little children. And they dress these little children and put red capes on them to better to see and spot them out in the woods. Okay, and they will turn them loose like a herd of deer or something in the woods and begin to actively hunt them. And whether they hunt them like vampires or whether they hunt them like werewolves or Satanists or witches, whatever form they want to take. And these people, don't forget this, these people have the ability to shapeshift. They can turn into different things. They can turn into a tiger. They can turn into a lion, whatever they want to, okay? They can turn into a big cat and hunt these little children down. Now, here's the interesting thing about it. Part of the ritual is that when they catch these children, eventually run them down, they will first defile them by raping them. And when they get through raping these children, then they will take their blood in some fashion or another, either bite them, cut them, whatever they want to do. They will spill the blood. And when they have sacrificed this child in the way that they want to, and they use certain different, I'm not going to get into the particulars on this. It's just something you don't really need to know. But there are certain rituals that they perform while they're doing these things, okay? But the first thing is sexual abuse that they go against them, because they got to defile what it is that they're serving to their master. Okay, it must be defiled. It can't be. Satan does not want innocence of any kind. Okay, and that's why they defile it first before they sacrifice it. All right, and it must be done that way. They do this to virgins on the altars. They do this in different ways. Okay, but I'm just talking about the red hunt right now. The red hunt is part of this, and the reason, of course, it's very self-explanatory why it's called the red hunt for two reasons. They dress them in red and they spill blood. Okay, that's what it's all about. And listen to this: the older members who can't actively turn into things and hunt these little children, guess what they will do? They will bring the little children in the rooms of the houses and they will hunt them room by room in a hellish version of hide and seek. They will hunt the little children down in the rooms and do the same thing to them. If they can't do it out in the forest, they can do it in buildings. But it is still part of this awful, terrible game, this ritual that they play. And this is fun and games for them. But it is also serious stuff, too. Because it's all about the ritual and the power that they gain from doing these things. And that's what the red hunt basically is. And it's very much like the banquet of blood and the feast of the wolves and other things. They have other things, and they celebrate these things on different nights of the year. As a matter of fact, just the other night we had Midsummer Night's Eve, St. John's Eve. That is one of the most evil nights of the year. They had probably did that kind of stuff the other night to commemorate St. John's Eve or Midsummer Night's Eve. They have different festivals where they partake in these games that they do and these rituals that they partake in. And, of course, little children are the easiest things to which they do. Some of these children are kidnapped. Some of them are sold to them. They buy them like you would go to the store and buy something. They buy them from sex predators who steal these children and kidnap them and do so that. But some of them are born and raised to participate in the red hunt. And the worst thing of all, that these children are forced into this, definitely against their own will, not even knowing what's really going on and what's happening to them. When they put that red cape on them and turn them loose in the woods and say, "Okay, run as fast as you can," and those poor little children start taking off and try to get away, but never do. They're not going to let a single one of them get away, folks, because they might tell somebody. They might actually get some help somewhere if they actually. There's no. When you enter this game called the Red Hunt, there's only usually one way out of it. That is death. That's the only way that it works. And that is the horrific thing about this. And yes, this is just one thing that they do. Okay, this is one thing. There are many different games that they play, many different ways that they go about doing this. But like I say, it is all definitely tied to rituals. Okay, and this is one of the deepest, darkest rabbit holes you will ever go in when you begin to study this kind of stuff. And like I say, it's not pleasant. It's not something fun that you want to know about, but it's something we do need to face and understand, that this kind of stuff is actually really going on. And that this is where a lot of unfortunate children end up, being in things like this and being used for things like this. And this is nothing but use and abuse. You know, we've talked about this before. Evil is good at using and abusing and then destroying what it gets through with finally. And that's what this is all about. But it is an attack, an insult against God and innocence of children that is sacrificed for this kind of stuff. But it raises their power, their dark power. And this is what they want. This is what they crave. And I've said this before. These people are sick, very sick and twisted and psychotic to do things like this. But this is what the darkness will do to you. When the darkness swallows you up, when it takes your soul, you are less human. You're not human. They have no empathy for these little children. They have no feeling for them. They're prey for them. That's all they are. They don't care. It's just a fun thing for them to do. It's a ritual they're gonna do. They get power out of it. It's something that they do. They don't feel for these people. They don't look upon these little children as human beings. That's what sick and twisted people do in cases like this. And this is some of the darkest darkness, my friends, that you could ever encounter in this world. But it's real and it goes on. And it is hooked directly into demonic power and darkness, supernatural darkness, beyond things that you would never really imagine. But it is real. And unfortunately, it's going on even now.
It's so true, Dennis, what you're saying about these these hunts. The first time I heard about this must have been about 15 years ago, when I was sent a link from an article that Fiona Barnett had written. Now, I'm not sure if you guys, if you've been following my channel, you would know who Fiona Barnett is. She was one of the top whistleblowers from Australia, and in fact was in the system with Nicole Kidman. And Anthony Kidman, Nicole's father, was Fiona's chief abuser or handler. They were talking then about these child hunts. And as we've gone along, we've also come to understand, in fact, some of the people, and Joanne Breeze, in fact, Joanne is usually in the chat. She's actually a survivor of these child hunts in Australia. There's a few people, a few of our viewers that are survivors of these horrific things. And what they do, it's like sports for the elite. So a lot of them take place at places like Bohemian Grove, a lot of the royal palaces, the castles. Apparently, and I'm going to be hearing more and more as we have Beverly Rhodes talking about South Africa. I told you all I've been praying for a South African or South Africans to step forward. Beverly Rhodes lived in South Africa, and I've just had my first show with her. So guys, if you haven't caught that, please do. She's, in fact, South African, well, British, taken in by obscene handler, right? And then very psychic, so was used for her spiritual gifts. Came to South Africa specifically to set up child transportation rings, right? And then was used by high official governments and stuff for her abilities and her gifts and her powers. So we're going to be talking a lot about that. But she in fact was one of the cleaners after some of these child entertainment. I want to just watch my words here for algorithm purposes. But Beverly Rhodes was, she spoke about, and we're going to be going more into that. She had to clean up after some of these things. And not only that, Dennis, that's very common why they have pig farms. Because if you look at the Mormon church as well, apparently the Mormon church, there's lots and lots of,
well, they have a lot of
lots of pig farms.
They have a lot of
and
they have a lot of secret words for these things, Shanty. Code words like the pig farm or the Cabbage Patch, the Cabbage Patch Kid kind of things. And the thing about these poor little children, they are being groomed, just like sexual predators groom children. They are being groomed to participate in these things, whatever they may be, whether they be games or rituals, whatever the situation. They are being groomed for these things, and they do meet in some of these places like Bohemia Grove and places like that. Well, they have to have a place. Let's understand this. They have to have a place they can control, because they don't want anything to get out of control and give themselves away. They're all about secrecy. Secrecy is a very supreme thing to them. They have to maintain that secrecy at all costs, because if any of it were to get out, it could, have a lot of bad repercussions on them. So they're going to guard their privacy very highly. And if you stumble upon something like this, they will probably unalive you as well. You're in a bad situation, because they're going to, take care of business. And they don't want you to know what they're doing out there. This is and here's the thing about it. The secrecy to them is sort of like the icing on the cake. The secrecy is what seals the ritual for them. The secret words and language they use, the secret ways they go about doing these things, it is all very symbolic and means so very much to them in many different ways. So they guard this stuff very well, Shanty. And they guard it to the point where if you threaten it in any way, and a lot of people have been threatened for coming out and talking about kind of stuff like this. Okay, a lot of people have been, had death threats and all that leveled against them, and stuff like that. They don't want this kind of stuff to get out. They don't want people to know that this really, this is a bunch of make believe stuff. They want you to think it's all made up, and that's just another way they use the smoke and mirrors on people to hide this kind of stuff. Most of the time, even in plain sight. That's the thing about it, Shanty. They're so devious in how they can cover up these things and keep it secret. Yeah.
It is absolutely, it's so true, Dennis. And I'm also just thinking as we're speaking, because the different lineages would have different types of these, call it child entertainment, right? Parties. So they have also, which is interesting to note, is they have the hierarchy kids, which are the bloodline kids, okay, that are not allowed to be unalived. And then they have the...
Let me address this right quick.
Sorry?
We not long ago, we heard a lot about something called soul cooking, which was nothing actually but a ritual And a lot of the highbrow elite people were engaging in this, and this woman supposedly was doing all these kind of rituals like an art form, soul cooking and all spirit cooking, as you called it, and all these other things. It was nothing but a cover up for rituals. And a lot of these elites, Shanty, a lot of them, they meet in these dinners and they partake of human flesh. But you're not going to, let me put it this way. If you were to walk in on this dinner, okay, you're not going to see somebody laying on the table. You're not going to see a body, but they're there. Understand? It's right in plain sight. It may look like ham, it may look like turkey, it may like chicken, but that's not what it is, folks. Okay, it is human flesh, but they dress it up to look different. Of course, they're very secretive about how they go about these things, but they all know they're in on the secret. See, they're saying they're winking and nodding at each other and saying, "Hey, we know what's really going on here, and we got everybody fooled about this." But that's why a lot of people, and we've heard reports of people, Shanty, coming out of these dinners saying, "My God, they're eating people in there." Yeah, and this stuff is really going on. But a lot of people say, that's they don't want to. Here's the thing about it, and here's the sad part about it. When we confront stuff like the red hunt and all this other kind of stuff, you got two camps of people that saying, that's a bunch of baloney, that's a bunch of made up stuff. I don't believe that, because it disturbs them a little bit. It bothers them. They don't want to believe something like that really happening. They're closing their eyes to it. And that, my friends, ain't helping nobody. Okay, that's definitely not the way to do this. Okay, and then you got other people that say, yeah, well, maybe this is real. Maybe it is going on. Those people are brave people. They confront it and they say, yeah, maybe it is real, and we need to find out what's really about it. But the cowardly people are the ones that say, I don't believe it. I don't want to deal with it. It bothers them too much. We need to be brave when it comes to trying to expose these kind of things, or what's really going on. But the elites are doing this, and let me say this about cursed bloodlines. Okay, I did a show the other night on cursed bloodlines. There are cursed bloodlines. Absolutely. There are people like the Rothschilds and the Biderbecks. I won't get into calling a bunch of names here, folks. Okay. But they have a long line of cursed bloodlines behind them and ahead of them. Definitely. Well, let me say there are two kinds of cursed bloodlines here that you need to always bear in mind when somebody says they have a cursed bloodline thing going on. Okay. And one thing is, some people embrace it and love it. They say, "Oh, I got a cursed bloodline. I love that. It gives me the power I want. I'm going to embrace it. It's mine. It's my heritage. It's my blood." Then you got the other camp that says, "Oh, I don't want that. I don't want to deal with that kind of stuff. I want to distance myself from that." So you've got two kinds of people working on this. You got the kinds that really like that kind of stuff and embrace it and make it their own, or you got people that don't want to embrace that. You got people that don't want that kind of stuff going on. Unfortunately, you got more that embrace it than you got fighting against it. Okay, if I found out tomorrow I had a cursed bloodline, I would start actively trying to break that cursed line. Okay, I would start trying to break it, and it can be broken if you try. There are ways to do it. Yeah. But some people don't want to break that line because it's giving them power and money and riches and all the things that they want. They have embraced it. Those are the darkest people out there walking around. They've sold out to the darkness. And they are the most, and let me tell you this, you got to understand this, and I warn all of you this. They are the most dangerous people walking this planet. They are snakes walking on two legs, folks. They will unalive you in a hurry, not just to maintain their secrecy, not just that, but just because of their very nature. They are dangerous and destructive. That's just the way evil works. So that's what makes them so downright dangerous. And we have to be careful how we approach this thing and make sure we are spiritually ready. We are spiritually strong to handle these kind of things, because this is more than just a physical thing. This is far more than physical. This is a spiritual disease and sickness that we're confronting here. This is what it is. It is a spiritual sickness that's in this world. It goes even far past some kinds of sins, for that matter. It goes even into far past religious stuff. Okay, this darkness is far reaching and more destructive than most people could ever imagine.
Indeed, it is, Dennis. That's one thing we've learned over the past few years, for sure, looking at these things. But I want to just go back to what I was saying earlier on, when we're talking about the small people hunting, because the way that they do it is actually quite sick. Is they'll have the hierarchy kids who are the bloodline kids, okay, who are also participating, but they are not allowed to be unalived. So there would be certain, and then you have the expendable kids who are allowed to be unalived. So they would be either wearing different colored t-shirts or numbers or something like that. But the ones that are not allowed to be unalived, they can be raped and hurt. You can do certain things with them. But of course, the expendables, you can. So this is part of that.
It's all tied into different types of rituals too that they're performing.
Absolutely. It's absolutely, and of course, it's part of their sports. And yeah, one of the South African survivors told me that theirs was called the teddy bear picnic. So they had to go on what is known as the teddy bear picnic. But I know her father came from some bear lineage. He was from some bear type lineage. So they do them slightly differently, but all with the same, absolutely the same intention, and that is to obviously be completely sadistic, psychopathic, and as morose as possible. Then, of course, we know that those organs, and it's true what you say, they will buy a child, right? And then first that child is worth about $1 million, really, at the end of it, because they will buy a child, they will obviously exploit it sexually, right? And prostitute it out for X amount of time. Then they will sacrifice it, then organ harvest it, right? And so they're making, and I do believe, I think Jesse mentioned that when you're looking at it like that, the total value of a child is about $1 million that they can make from one child. And again, then of course, we know as well that the remains of these children
I have heard
actually are put into our food.
They have sort of like slave auctions for a lot of these children. And the older children don't get as much as the younger children in the auctions and stuff like that. They have different prices. Yeah. But here's another thing we got to consider: the rape of the children is ritualistic rape. By the way, it has a ritual to it as well, and it is part of the sex power thing, the sex magic that they're looking for. It ties into this as well, but also there is a part of it that is torture. Torture is what infuses the blood with fear, and the trauma we talked about so much in the past. It infuses their blood and makes it more palatable for them. That's part of the thing too, but a lot of this is tied to dark rituals, definitely. But yeah, you're right. They do auction children off, definitely, and especially the younger ones get more money. I think the more innocent, or the younger they like, the younger the blood. There's something about the young blood that attracts them more than anything else in those respects. But the sad thing about it, and like you said,
well, yeah, it's obviously the innocence. Mm.
the teddy bear picnic and all this stuff too. These things. Here's the really twisted thing about it, Shanty, and we got to think about this too. They're telling these little children that, well, we're going to play some games today. It's going to be the teddy bear game, or it's going to be the
How
little Red
difficult,
Riding Hood
Peter.
game. It's going, yeah. They present these as games to the children, and that's how they. I mean, it's just sick. But that's what they're. That's the way they're doing these
Yeah.
things. Yeah. Mhm.
I mean, they really, it's horrific, they, and then also, what they do with the remains, and which is why we don't often, you seldom find the remains of all these hundreds and thousands of children that are being transported. And they end up crushed up in our food, right? As well as cement in the buildings of a lot of the Masonic temples. And it's, of course, that's how it's cursed as well. So
Well,
that's
there's a lot of in black witchcraft. There's a lot of ornaments that are made from crushed bones and flesh and stuff like that. You have a lot of ornaments. Even the ornament they supposedly made that they can fly with or levitate, that helps them levitate and fly, is an ornament usually made supposedly out of the fat of unbaptized children. Um, the list goes on and on with the different and I talked about this on my show last night on Hunting the Shadows. I talked about the 9 black gates, and we'll have to do a show for you on that one day. The 9 black gates of dark witchcraft, the 9 powers that they want, and one of those powers is being able to fly and levitate. And they will rub themselves with this ointment that they make from the fat of babies and stuff like that. The list goes on and on and on, what they do, and that's probably why you never find anybody's, because they are used completely for what for all the different purposes that they use them for.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. And of course cannibalized as well, right? Because then of course, I don't know, I mean, I don't know if you guys ever watched the interview I did with Caleb Jade about a year and a half ago on the Wild Hunt. I mean, that's when literally the children are hunted by mythological creatures, and it's done at a certain time of the year, and very, very hectic. So I do believe it's done towards the end of
Now
the
that's
year.
based on the myth
Uh,
of the wild hunt that's very well known in Europe. And Hearn the hunter is supposed to be the one who leads the pack on horses and
yeah,
hounds,
it's no
and it
myth.
is
It's
nothing
no
but
myth, Dennis.
a game of hunting the fox, but you use little children instead of a fox.
Yeah, but there's no myth. I mean, it's mythological creatures, these hellish portals or gates that get opened, and these horrific demonic entities literally come out and they hunt the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you guys haven't watched that show, I want to highly recommend you do. It's actually the second interview I did with Caleb Jade. Gosh, must be a year and a half ago now. And it's called The Wild Hunt. And he actually speaks about his experience there. And it was horrific
Actually,
because
yeah, I
he
talk
was
about the
captured,
wild hunt
actually.
in my
He,
book, Shanty, The Road Unseen. I talk about the wild hunt, which is a very well known European legend. It also, by the way, I was just going to mention this to everybody, it ties in also to the southwestern United States as the Ghost Riders. Okay, same kind of a thing, same kind of a legend, kind of a myth, but it's a fascinating thing. But it goes deep into Germanic folklore and Scandinavian folklore, and it goes out throughout all of England as well. The wild hunt is very well known. Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely, it's not, that's what I say, when I was doing research for the wild, for this thing, everything, there was nothing. I'm sure Caleb Jade, unless there's some people that have spoken about it since then, there's been no one else that's actually spoken about it that's been part of it. And he speaks about when they caught him and he was put into a metal box, right, with a 17-year-old breeder. And after day one, a druid opens up the metal box and throws or gives them a knife or whatever and says, only one of you gets out. So literally, the girl he was in the box with took her own life for him to live. He was 10 at the time. So, and then afterwards, when they get out of this box, there's a feast.
I'm sure that's one
And
of
then of course you haven't eaten for 3 days as a child. Then you get open, let out of this box in the most traumatic situation, and there's a feast of all different types of cuts of meat. Well, guess who you're eating? You're eating the kids that have been hunted. So that's the wild hunt.
Yeah, that ties into a lot of the games that that they do, and the ritual. And like I say, a lot of this being tied into rituals as well, and the sex magic and all this other stuff that they're doing. Its main goal is to increase their power over things and to obtain power and to hook up to that power. That's one of the main goals that they do this. And if they can create trauma and death on a great scale like that and cause people to unalive each other and torture them, that's what they love.
Yeah, well, of course, they feed off that. That's their leash. That pain. We know that by now. But I mean, it's just incredible that so many crimes are being committed against children. When you go back to the beginning of time and you're looking at all these ancient statues and things of these dark gods, and you see them throwing kids into the fire or eating the babies or whatever, I mean, I don't know at what point humanity that we, and I include myself in that, got so dumbed down that we were not seeing what is actually going on. Those statues have forever been there, and they have not stopped
What
doing
I call it, Shanty, is spiritual desensitization. We are desensitized spiritually a lot of times to these things and don't really understand what's going on. And really understand the ramifications of a lot of this stuff. Like the what we're talking about on this show today, 90% of the people out there don't even know this exists. They don't know this kind of stuff's going on. And that's what they want. That's the way they want to keep it. That's why they work in the shadows and the dark, under their secrecy and all this stuff. That empowers them as well. But we are desensitized spiritually. We ignore the dark spiritual aspects of this world, and that's a bad thing to do because they are real and they are there and they exist, and they can very badly affect us if we're not careful. But we tend to ignore those things, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's, as we say, just about being conscious. But I mean, I'm a great believer in just, don't stoke a fire unless you have to. Let us be aware of what's going on around us, right? And let us be conscious of what's going on around us, but let us not fear and become traumatized and go into this great big panic mode because all of the stuff is there. That's exactly what they want us to do. When we become spiritually fit, right? It's like you smell negative energies around you. You don't even have to be on guard for what's coming. You're attuned and you know what's happening. You'll be in the right place at the right time. You're able to move out of that place miraculously. That's the thing. When we realize we really put faith over fear, miracles are the order of the day. It is our birthright. Miracles are our birthright. So when we realize that, that's when we don't encounter these things. It's like we're too light for it.
Absolutely.
But we're all on the path of moving beyond that and doing the shadow work so that we can move out of those swampy, toxified places.
And
that's really.
I was telling somebody the other day, and this is something we also need to address when we think about it. There is a spirit that has entered this world just in my lifetime. Okay, I've seen it. There's a spirit of fear and intimidation that has entered this world, and it is coming from the darkness. It's not coming from the good place. It's definitely not a good place. This fear and intimidation is coming from the darkness because this is the weapon that they use against us. Okay, this is the very, I'm gonna say, the most strongest arrow they've got in their quiver. Okay, and this fear and intimidation, they try to scare us into silence. They want to keep us quiet. They want to keep us not knowing and not wanting to realize what's really going on in this world because it scares us to think about it sometimes, okay? And they use that, they utilize this fear as a weapon against us. And we need to understand that they're doing that, Shanty, absolutely. And we need to address that fear and say, hey, I'm not going to fall for this trick. You know, I'm not going to fall for this fear. I'm going to fight it. Fear cannot do anything to you unless you give it that power. And you don't give fear the power, then it has nothing on you. It doesn't have any kind of a hold on you. But you've got to empower yourself that way against this fear, you know? And I've had people, we've talked about fear over the years, and everybody gets scared. Don't, anybody comes up to you and says, I don't get scared. They're the biggest liar you ever walked up on, okay? Everybody gets scared of something. We all have some kind of deep seated fear, whether it's the fear of heights or fear of cats. Some people are scared of cats. I mean, think about all these different fears we have, but we don't want to let them control us. It's one thing to have fear. It's another thing to let it control you. And that's what the darkness wants. It wants the fear to control you, the weapon against you. Don't fall for that. Don't let them trick you into believing that, because that's what they're good at. And if we take that fear and use it the right way and say, hey, I'm not going to fall prey to it. I'm going to let it motivate me the right way to fight that fear. That's what we need to do. And that's what the darkness doesn't want. They don't want that. But if they don't want it, I want it. Okay? That's the way I look at it.
It's just commenting on what Colleen was saying, yeah. With natural ingredients, yeah, that's one of the things. So when you've got to check the ingredients, what Jesse was saying to us about that, when that news first broke, I remember that came to us about 4 years ago. I was absolutely mortified when I heard that. But in the more organic type, natural food products, that's typically more grainy, you're going to find that. So anything that's got the more organic, natural ingredients in there as well.
I think it's interesting to note, Shanty, that there is a red food color made from bugs. A lot of people don't know this, okay? You're eating bugs, folks, okay? This red food color comes from bugs, okay? But they never tell you that. But now listen, I just want you to think about this a moment. That's what you know about. What else don't you know about? You know, what
exactly. I mean, it's
yeah.
Exactly. It's just that's why, guys, grow your own veggies, for goodness sake. They get away with this because we totally give our power away to these big companies. We've totally given our health away. I mean, think about Big Pharma right now. I mean, that medical mafia has us controlled second to none. We've forgotten that our bodies are designed to heal themselves. And when we start reclaiming that, and we therefore empower ourselves and disempower this medical mafia and the pharmaceutical mafia, right? Same thing with religion. Religion has controlled human beings for so long. And I'm not talking about being a believer and understanding true spirituality, right? I'm talking about controlled religion, talking about the schooling system, how they control the minds of people, our youngsters, how we as mothers have bought into the fact that we need to be working and create this dynamic life for ourselves, and at the same time our children are being given away to the powers that be who control their minds now. And hey, you all know me, please, I don't want any feminists coming for me now. I'm not saying women should not be independent and doing their thing, but I think we've lost balance. We've lost the balance of what we need to be doing at home with our families and children, right? And also what we're doing as contributing intellectually to society. And I think when we see where our kids have gone and where it looks like the youth are going, I'm afraid that we have most definitely, it's showing in the kids, it's showing in the youth that we've lost control. And we need to reclaim that again. So it's a process of doing that. They've done a damn fine job on us, but we've allowed it. You know, we've allowed it. We've allowed the technology to take over. We've allowed ourselves to sit watching Netflix for 4 days in a row. We've allowed ourselves to be scrolling on our phone second to none. We've allowed ourselves to let the fast food industry take over. We've allowed it. So we've got to stop blaming them. We're the product. They're the supplier. We've bought what they've supplied. So it's up to us to change that now. It really is. That's the only way we're going to do it. They're not going to do it. Why would they? Why would they suddenly want to be cool with us? Why would any leader have our best interest at heart right now? They don't. They've got their own at heart. We've got to have our own interest at heart. And that's what's going to get us through this. Anyway, grow your own veggies. That's what I do. And then you know where things come from. It's true. We've all allowed ourselves to become zombies.
Yeah, that's the way they want us to. That's definitely they want us brain dead, you know, because they can control us better that way. And it's not just the fear and intimidation. They like to divide us up, you know, divide and conquer, as that old saying used to go. They want to keep us divided, pigeonholed the way they want us to be. And they also like to use us against each other. They want us to hate each other, whether it's about whatever color skin we happen to have or what nationality we may be or whatever the situation is. They want to keep us divided and at each other because they are getting a certain amount of negativity off of that too. They're feeding off of that. These guys are parasites. They're like, you know, leeches or ticks or mosquitoes. Mosquitoes kill more people in the world than anything else on this planet, by the way, folks. Mosquitoes are awful. And that's what they are. They are a form of human mosquitoes, okay? They are feeding off of us all the time. Yeah.
So true. You know, malaria, and it's true what you said, Dennis. Malaria in Africa, guys, what kills more people than AIDS. I kid you not. When you go to North Africa, I mean, when I travel to places like Zambia, the Congo, I've never taken a malaria tablet in my life. No, I won't take them. But you're supposed to take your malaria. I mean, people up there, they like have malaria tablets next to their bed, like you might have a headache tablet just in case. They've got like a whole lot of, I feel like I'm getting malaria, and they'll just take tablets. It's amazing. Malaria is exactly the thing that kills more people. That's super interesting, actually, isn't it? So yes, they definitely. I think it must be B2 with that own leg blood. Gosh, they love my blood. That's for sure. Good grief. There's a mosquito around, and there's 100 people. It will find me. That's for
Absolutely.
sure. Anyway.
I'm not saying we have bad mosquitoes where I live, but Shanty, they all carry switchblades. Okay. They're mean mosquitoes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what? When I was in India, it was especially bad. I'm going to tell you. Every morning we were doing yoga, and of course, at the time that you're doing headstand, okay? That's exactly the time, 6:30 in the morning, the mosquitoes come and they will absolutely attack you. It is unbelievable. So eventually and then my yoga instructor, and always, because I'm like, and he says, quiet mind. No, he says, the mosquito will only come for you when your mind is not quiet. And I mean, it's so true, because they reckon your energy will, of course, if your mind is quiet, the mosquito is not going to bug you. And my mind was definitely not quiet when those mosquitoes came for me, boy, that's for sure. It's actually hilarious about that. But anyway, yeah, Dennis, to go back to what we were saying earlier on, just in terms of keeping ourselves connected and aligned, that's all we can do right now. That's all we can do.
You know, that's absolutely true, Shanty. We can strengthen ourselves spiritually by acquiring the knowledge we need to know. We need to know these things are going on, and we need to understand why they're doing these things and what they're up to and all that. That gives us the knowledge and the power over these things, okay? And that empowers us spiritually to handle these things, to know that this kind of darkness is out there, and understand how it works. Know your enemy well, folks. You always want to keep an eye on your enemy, no matter what they're up to, and know what they're up to and the things that they're doing, and say, hey, that gives you more power over them spiritually, okay? But you also got to think about yourself spiritually as well. If your spiritual life is healthy and strong, then this darkness is going to be wash off of you like rain off a duck's back. Okay, it's not going to touch you. Okay, it can't touch you. If you got that strong spiritual attitude about you, you got that positive force inside of you, that healthy spirit, and that's what you need to strive and work for, just like you do with yoga and other exercise like that, to exercise your body and have a healthy body. Don't neglect your spirit. Spirit is very important, and it must balance out with everything else. And you got to keep it positive. You got to keep it in good shape and strong. And then this darkness can't lay a finger on you. But that's the way you got to be with it. And that's what you got to work on. You got to keep that. And just like yoga and all these other things that Shanty's talking about, you got to keep at it. You just don't. You don't say, "Oh, I think I'll do that in the next 3 months," and not even worry about it 3 more months after that. You got to do it every day. You got to do it.
Yeah.
You got to engage in it every day, almost, because if you don't,
consistency.
Then you get
it's consistency. It's like any muscle in your body. You know, if you be consistent, you're going to benefit from it. You know, that's it. Kriya yoga, yes. A Raja Yogi. Dennis, do you know what a Raja Yogi is? They're telling you you're a Raja Yogi.
Absolutely.
Do you know what a Raja Yogi is, Dennis?
Yeah. Okay. I've never had that title, but that sounds interesting. Yeah.
Raja is basically you're the king. You're the king yogi. You're the king yogi. Let's just put it that way, right? You're the king yogi. Anyway. Goodness me. Okay, Dennis, thank you. You see, Raja is king. Exactly. You're the king yogi.
All right, that's good. I have to work on that.
You don't have to work on it. You are it already, Dennis. You don't have to work on something you already are. Just accept that you are it and just relax into the knowing that I am this.
That's right. Absolutely.
Oh, lovely. Dennis, I say thank you so much. You want to tell us where we can get hold of you again for the rest of the week?
Okay, well, tomorrow night at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Paranormal Point of View, we're going to be talking about some movie reviews and maybe some book reviews, stuff like that. And also, I will have my good friend Maureen and Gus on there tomorrow night, and she's going to be one of my field operatives, and we're going to be talking about that. So we're stretching out with the channel a little bit, and maybe doing some conferences and stuff going around. So we'll see how that goes. And Monday night, I will be appearing with my good friend Gerald Fountain on the road less traveled. We'll be doing some offbeat stuff on that. And of course, every Wednesday night, Hunting the Shadows. And that'll be at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time as well. My books are available on Barnes & Noble. And if you need to get in touch with me for any reason, I do a lot of paranormal consultation. If you need to get in touch with me, you can do so at denniswcarroll.com. And it is all confidential and free of charge, okay? So if you have any problems or anything like that, you feel you need to just want to talk about something, you want to report something, whatever, you can reach out to me, and we'll see what we can get done.
You're such a sweetheart, Dennis. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you next week again, same time, same place. And as you all know, we're back on Aquarius Rising Africa again. So please, if you haven't checked the shows, if you've missed our shows for the past 2 weeks, they are on Solutions with Shanti. And then tomorrow being Friday, I will, yes, at 12 o'clock, 12 noon, I'm on with Joanne Breeze again. We're doing the greatest story never told of Adolf Hitler, and that is going on Rumble. So we're doing that on Rumble and on X. It's not on YouTube. So please catch us with that. It's a commentary, very super interesting to see what that's always about. And then Friday evening, Leo Zagami in the evening, Jesse Q&A on Patreon in the afternoon, and then a weekend with Kathy O'Brien. I have Kathy O'Brien on with me on Saturday as well as Sunday, so join us for some very cool guests this weekend. So I'm busy, you all. I'll be hanging out with you, so I hope you'll be hanging out with me as well. Dennis, do you want to maybe just end off for us in a quick prayer? Thank you.
Okay, yeah, let's bow our heads right quick. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for everyone who's been watching and listening to this channel today. We thank you for Chantelle and all of our friends who tuned in. And I ask you, Lord, that you will touch each and every single one of them. Bless them in a special way, that you will give them power to live the lives that they need to live, that you will empower their spirits as well as their bodies and their minds. Refresh their minds, rejuvenate them, and send them out into the world against this darkness. Let them be warriors and not victims against the darkness. We ask, O Lord, that you will give us the strength, the peace, and the protection of your holy angels from this time forward until everlasting. And we ask this in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, the one name to which all power is given in heaven and earth. And in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, we humbly pray. Amen.
Amen.